What's your I was the only one to get away story? Story 1. When we were 16, three friends and myself decided to book last-minute tickets to a concert. We were all pre-gaming at that friend's place that lived closest to the venue, and after a level of sufficient drunkenness was achieved, we decided to head. Now, there were two ways of getting to the venue, which was held at a beach. Either take the long walk around a graveyard or, surprise, cut through the graveyard. Unfortunately, the graveyard was closed because the city didn't want people walking through it at night. But hell if that was going to stop us. So we all began attempting to climb the 2-meter or 6-foot 5-inch fence. My friends managed to get to the other side, but me, being the drunkest, didn't make it. As I'm struggling to get over, a flashlight appears in the distance and begins yelling something along the lines of, "Hey, you!" We all stared for a while before realizing it was a cop, so my friends booked it and left me dangling in the fence. I managed to hop down from and hide in a nearby bush. After watching my friends and the cop run away, my inebriated brain decides this is a good time to try again. Somehow, I managed to climb over and start casually strolling through the graveyard, wine bottle in hand. It wasn't long before another flashlight appeared in the distance, but I was prepared. Naturally, I began running like an idiot, even managing to lose a shoe along the way and make it to one of the exits. Through a stroke of luck, me and my one shoe managed to find other friends heading to the concert. Suckers took the long way around, so I go in with them. My three other friends caught up around an hour later and began telling me how they hid behind a gravestone before the cop caught them and interrogated them about underage drinking. Luckily, I was the one carrying all the alcohol. While nothing actually happened to them, no charges, etc., they were all pooping themselves behind a gravestone for a good 20 minutes while I was having the time of my drunken teenage life. Then everyone made fun of me for losing a shoe. Too long didn't read. Friends sit in a graveyard waiting for cops to bust them while I'm getting drunk with all the booze. I do not condone underage drinking. I do not condone. But this was a charmed life experience. This person rolled natural 20s all through this encounter and just got through everything and carried all the alcohol. Kudos. Story 2. Lollapalooza a few years back. Me and my one friend and about 10 other random kids were walking around the festival looking for a place to hop the fence and sneak in because none of us bought tickets. We finally find an area where there are only a couple security guards. There were about a dozen of us that hopped this tall fence at the same time. Little did we know that the Chicago police security tent for the festival was right where we all hopped the fence. As soon as we hopped the fence, about 8 cops came running out of nowhere, and at least half the group was on the ground with security holding them down immediately. This security firm had some athletic jack types. The cops get the other 4 kids after about a 15-foot intense dash. I swear, kids were getting tackled left and right. These cops and security were literally spearing kids into the ground and shoving their faces in the dirt. It was insane. Me and my one friend made it about another half a block and ran into another fence. This whole time, 2 cops are chasing us. As we were hurdling the second fence, one cop grabbed my arm and tried pulling me down, and I shimmied my way onto the other side. We see one more scalable fence, and we hop that too. How many fences were there in this thing? At this point, we realize we're backstage for Eminem, and we head into 2 porta potties backstage for about 10 minutes to hide out just as the show is starting. We realize the cops have better things to do and probably quit searching for us. We head up the side stairs to Eminem and literally get on the side of the stage. Nothing better than an adrenaline-filled sprint, hopping multiple fences and making it on stage with Eminem for free. My friend's Southern Comfort pint didn't fall out of his pocket, so we had that to drink on. Nothing beats being 18 without a care in the world. It was like sneaking into prison. Excuse me while I hop multiple fences and meet Eminem. All right, that was a really good story as well. This was not the kind of stories I was thinking of when I saw this title. But why was it like sneaking into prison? I feel like it would be you were sneaking out of prison. What's your idea of prison like? Story 3. When I was in 3rd grade, I went to a pretty good school, but all around it were lots of low-income areas full of white families. Over the next 2 years, they all started to gravitate into my school. So by 5th grade, energy drinks, weapons, mainly knives, but nobody ever used them, swearing, white gangster kids, and sideways flat bill hats with the stickers still on them were everywhere. Of course, most people fell in love with UFC and WWE around this age. I did not. Sadly, my friends did. And it led to some confrontations. Then one day, people in my clique started to write on a piece of paper at lunch names of kids they wanted to try to beat up at recess. I went along with it out of curiosity. Then the whole table knew about the list, and soon the whole lunchroom. It was all we could talk about, and somehow the list evolved into a fight at recess. The teachers tried to shut it down, but to no avail. Then at recess, around 80% of the school was at one corner of the playground in a circle, and an all-out brawl started. I wasn't in it because I had no idea how to fight, and I didn't feel like getting in trouble. All of the school staff, well, most of it was needed to stop it, and the crowd was broken up and lectures were being given. They gave out punishments to anyone who was near the fight, so a group of kids and I tried to sneak away. We were about to enter a wooded area of the playground. It was Michigan, so we had lots of these, and a teacher shouted at us to get over here. Being at the front, I quickly slipped behind a wide trunk while the others went towards the teacher and their imminent doom. Nobody even noticed me slip to the other side of the playground to avoid the teachers. And that is how around 60 to 70% of the school got detentions and counseling, and I got off scot-free. The sole survivor in my clique. I want to know what the aftermath of this one was. Surely someone noticed that he was with their group, or this person was with their group, and that he somehow managed to elude all this punishment and detentions. Did he get any guff, or did he get any praise for it afterwards? What is the aftermath? Story 4. I'm the only one left from my group of 3 best friends since 3rd grade. First one hung himself because he was a pain pill addict, and I think the pressure of addiction and owing a lot of people money got to him. Ate a big ton of Klonopins and hung himself on his mom's Porsche with a dog leash. My wife was dating him when I met her, and I always joke about it when people ask how we met. I say she was dating my friend and I stole her, and when they ask if we are still friends, I get quiet and say he unalived himself. Second one was a horse addict. Wrecked his car badly when he nodded off, and he lived. After getting home from the hospital, he shot up again and nodded off while eating cereal and choked. His mom found him blue in the face. He lived, but is a completely different person who will never be independent again. The third one just perished recently. He was the most baddest person ever. Had so much fun in a life he loved. He was the dude on your social media you lived vicariously through. Baddest chicks every month. Awesome road trips to Mexico one week and Alaska the next. He loved living the biker life. I couldn't even cry when he expired because he expired doing what he loved. He had literally said to me that he would rather perish on his bike than doing anything else. Anyway, this will probably be buried, but it felt good to write. I've been off substances except booze for a while now, and my wife and I are really happy. Glad I made it out of that town alive. Definitely miss my bros, though. We had some great, amazing times. This is completely different from everything else here. Sorry to hear. Story 5. Years back in high school, my buddy threw a huge party. Unfortunately, not just our usual group showed up. It was well over 100 people. Anyways, I was always on the lookout for cops or shady people. I had my reasons as to how doomed I would be had I gotten caught drinking. Sports, school, family, scholarships, etc. So the party goes on. More and more people we don't normally hang out with show up. So I grab my buddy and our designated driver and say, we need to leave now. You can crash at my place. I don't care. Let's go. We hop into his car. That's when I throw a duffel bag of beer drunkenly into his trunk, followed by the sounds of tabs popping and beer spilling. We pull out and drive away. We get a quarter mile down the road before we see 4 cop cars headed to the house. The party was immediately shut down. Countless tickets written. People kicked off sports teams or clubs. What's funny is the same scenario happened 2 other times in high school. I left a party before the cops busted everyone and people got tickets the day before graduation. And another time, I left a kickback which ended in the arrests of a few friends. My reputation still holds true. I always leave minutes before the cops arrive, said the narc. Story 6. Loads of people at a pub in my town that was notorious for not IDing, so had loads of underage people in there drinking. It was the busiest night of the year, and the police raided it. Most people ran out the back, and some hopped the fence. The rest tried to hide in the toilets. I just sat there drinking as the police came through the pub, pulling everyone out of the toilets and back inside, IDing them all and taking names and addresses. The people who had jumped the fence decided to stand on the corner just outside to wait for their friends who hadn't been so lucky, they thought. Next thing they knew, the police had come outside and started IDing everyone standing on the corner like they had inside. Myself and 2 friends, one of age and the other, like me, not yet 18, had just sat there through the entire incident, drinking our pints and joking with some of the better-natured cops. They didn't bother IDing anyone who hadn't run, so I was one of a very few of my friends who got away with it scot-free. This is beautiful. My best friend from college used to say, if you act like you own the place, you own the place. We used to do crazy stuff and no one would say a thing because we acted like nothing was wrong. I believe it. I've seen videos, you've probably seen them too, about people who have just carried a ladder with them and were able to get into all sorts of places they shouldn't have gotten into just because people passed them through and thought that they belonged there. Why else would they have a ladder? It's crazy. Story 7. High school party. One of my first. I was wasted, throwing up in the basement bathroom when the cops arrived. Eventually, they were let inside and stormed into the basement where everyone was hiding, loudly, with the lights off, with their flashlights beaming down into the dark. I want to say there were at least 30 people rounded up into the living room where they started calling parents. The host of the party saw me sitting on the mantel, having accepted my fate. She knew my dad would literally whoop my butt and sent me out the window. I knocked over the grill on my way out and walked around the back of the house through a few backyards and to the neighborhood pool where I cuddled with some bushes for a few hours. When I saw the last cop finally leave, I sprinted back to the house and knocked on the door to be let in, scaring the hell out of the 3 survivors. A few dozen people were charged with underage drinking. That's a good host/captain. She goes down with the sinking ship but saves you. Story 8. I was gambling in Vegas on a Friday with a friend's bachelor party coming up the next day. Playing blackjack mostly just wasted time waiting for dinner, but the table was on fire. It was a full table shortly after I sat down. I played for a couple of hours, and the table was all up on money anywhere from $50,000 to $800,000. The $800,000 was me. Everyone else was literally up at least $10,000. It's about 20 minutes before I'm supposed to meet up with someone, so I call it and head back to my room so I can shower and change for the night, head out for dinner, and have a good night. The next morning, my buddies call me down to the lobby to meet up. As I get down there, out of sheer coincidence, they're talking to the dealer that was at the table when I left. She says, "There he is," and points at me. Friends are like, "No foolin'." Turns out I was the only one that walked away from that table with $1 to my name. Someone taught me that the moment the dealer mentions how well you're doing, it's time to quit playing. Story 9. I went to a private high school and was part of a group of about 20 people who knew about a tent hidden in the woods behind our school. People would go there and have spicy time after school, smoke pot, or do hood rat stuff. Someone got in trouble and ratted out all of us as an attempt to lessen her punishment. Apparently she was going to be expelled, and on the last day before finals, we all got called down to the detention room, and the dean told us that they had found illicit substance paraphernalia and weapons, airsoft pistol, and made us all write down everything we knew about the tent and who we've seen at the tent. 19 people ratted out everyone in that room, including themselves, and were given pretty harsh punishments. 3 were expelled, some were suspended into the next year, and the rest got demerits. I wrote down, "I have no idea what you're talking about." Went and talked to the deans and said the same thing, and was off the hook. I'm certain my name was on every list, and I'm sure they wanted to nail me, but I denied, and I guess they were satisfied with 19 people giving themselves up. My very first college professor gave me advice I remember to this day. First day of English class, don't record it, don't write it down, and deny, deny, deny.
Please like and subscribe if you made it this far. I hope you'll enjoy the rest of the video and have a wonderful day.
Story 10. One night, quite a few years ago, one of my buddies threw a party with about 50 people. We were mostly all under 21 at the time and had a few other illegal substances as well. Soon enough, the cops show up. By the time they had opened the doors, I had found myself a nice little tool bench to hide inside where the opening for the chair was. This was in the garage, and they also had black lights in, so it was difficult to see clearly. So the cops start to give people breathalyzers, all the while I'm crawled up in this little hole for hours. After about 2 hours, they finally load up the last wagon, and I think they pull away. I throw out my legs, which are completely asleep, and right after, I hear the cops start heading back inside. I crawled back in as they started to take pictures and dump out the alcohol. The best part about this is that with the black lights, the flash from the camera gave better sight of the room. I have a friend that works in the police station that told me you can see me scrunched inside this little area in one of the pictures. The cops apparently weren't even angry, just laughed and said they were somewhat impressed. Story 11. We were at a fish show, and we had been following the tour for a while. Undercovers caught my dude rolling a blunt in the car. Then the other dude with us was coming by, and I was throwing as many GTFO son looks I can, but they popped him for having pills when he came by. So everyone I was with, including the dude who owns the car, got arrested, thousands of miles from home. As the smartest in the group is getting cuffed, he asked the cops to give me his keys and their tickets. So I had a pair of concert tickets, a car that isn't mine, and like $100. Took the car, bought a couple hundred bottles of water and a few 30-packs and went back to the concert. Sold all the water for $1 each. Most of the beers, except like 15 or so, I drank for $3 each, and scalped every ticket for like $120 each. Showed up at the jail with a random girl from the concert, completely drunk, and bailed my friends out in all ones. Then bought them a hotel room. I can't leave my people behind, man. You are the type of friend they talk about for ages. Story 12. I wasn't the only one to get away, but I was in the fewer than 10% that got away. Used to street race in and right after high school. One night we were at one of the quieter locations and we got an alert that cops were heading in from one direction. We all book it to our cars and start heading out the way that wasn't being closed in on. Suddenly, cars are e-braking and flipping 180 degrees in the middle of the road in front of us, and we see a wall of cops advancing. Suckers closed us in. They herded us into a big parking lot, and I'll never forget watching like 30 Honda Civics drive around in panicked circles like frightened wild animals. At the time, I was 17 and only had my permit, and I had sneaked out, so getting caught was not an option. I saw a couple of the lesser-lowered cars hop a curb in the back of the parking lot and book it across a dirt field. Came out in a residential neighborhood I had never seen before, and it took me 30 minutes to get out, but I didn't get caught. One of my buddies did, and he's got his car impounded, an $800 fine, and his parents were ticked. No regrets. Story 13. Hotboxing a truck with some friends of a friend senior year in an empty parking lot of some park. Already high as hell, when suddenly the Taco Bell we had gorged on earlier is going ape wild in my bowels, and holy hell, I need a bathroom. I ran/stumbled my way to the public restroom on the other side of the parking lot. I finish, and as I'm about to walk out, I see what looks like red lights illuminating the entrance. I start losing my cool. I know it's cops, and everyone's high as hell. At this point, I knew A, my friends are doomed, B, what the hell should I do? I retreated into the farthest stall and texted my parents saying I was crashing at some dude's house. Ended up falling asleep in the stall. Woke up the next morning and got another friend to pick me up. Got away, no one ratted me out, and that's how Taco Bell simultaneously destroyed and saved my butt at the same time. Legendary. Story 14. My first house party in college was on Halloween my freshman year. Naturally, everyone was in costume, and about half the people there were underage. I wasn't even drinking, but my friends were. Around midnight, an older guy, 40s, walked in dressed as a cop. Me, being one of the few sobers at the party, realized he was an actual cop. I tried to convince my friends to leave, but they all said the guy was just in a costume, so I left on my own. I walked right past the cop, told him to have a good night, and walked home. I found out the next day all my friends got tickets for underage drinking. If you weren't drinking, you wouldn't have had anything to worry about. You could have just asked for a breathalyzer test. Story 15. Drunk with a few friends walking through the docks/trendy bar area and seeing an industrial building with a tantalizingly easy-to-climb-up-to roof. We climbed up on the roof. They recycle plastic. Someone reports burglars on the roof because recycled plastic and trash must be a big target, and cops show up. I casually climb onto a tree that overhangs the roof and quickly pass out, and the cops don't see me. My friends don't rat me out. They get banned for life from a bar in a completely different area of the dock complex because the cops told them they caught them trying to cut a hole in the roof and burgle them. Utter bull. We were stargazing and drunk chatting. Anyway, I woke up a few hours later and asked why they left me there, and I'm reminded of the whole cop thing and informed them they weren't arrested but were banned from a bar. We went to the bar the next day to make a point. Story 16. One time, my psychology prof was in a bad mood, so he started asking everyone for their student ID. Rules say you have to show it to a uni official if they ask for it. I didn't have mine that day, and I didn't know what the punishment was, but I knew I wanted none of it, so I tried to get out of it. So what do? Applied psychology. Before he gets to me, I walk up to him and ask a question. When he comes around, he just points at me and mutters to himself that he'd already checked me. It wasn't a sure thing. If he'd asked for my ID when I asked the question, I was doomed. It required careful timing to ask the question before he saw me so that he was already thinking about that by the time he turned to face me. In the end, something like half the class didn't have their ID that day. Turns out all they do is tell you to carry it. Story 17. I was the only one to get away from my hometown. Even the kids who went to college out of state moved right back. I was one of 4 in my class who took early graduation, graduated high school with diploma in hand at the end of January instead of June, even though due to how the school changed class scheduling, like 90% of the senior class was eligible. We went from a possible 7 credits a school year to a possible 10. The change happened in our junior year, so since we all came in under the old schedule, we still only needed the lower credits to graduate. I remember on my last day in January, everyone was talking in their homeroom like, "Did you take early grad? No? I wish I did, but I'd miss everyone." This was the school, town, teachers, jobs, people they said they utterly detested, and couldn't wait to get away from. They're all still there, now with apartments and kids. Still saying how much they hate it and wish they could move away. Story 18. Big house party. I drank the wrong drink, got Rohypnol, went to my car, and passed out for the rest of the night. Everyone was on the big deck and it collapsed. Then the cops showed up and acted like total songs even though people were injured. I slept in my car through the whole thing. Semi-related story. A friend of mine left a party drunk and knew he was too impaired to drive home, so he napped in his car. Later that night, the police knocked on his window to wake him up and served him a DUI. Good news? He got the charges dismissed 2 years later. Story 19. Started racing. I was winning. Cop lights came on. My friend stopped. I kept going. A few minutes later, I got a call from my friend. Friend, the cop wants you to come back. Me. No. Friend, he says you'll get it an hour later. Me. I guess I'll get it later then. Parked my car down the street from my house. My friend came and picked me up. We went to his place to play Xbox. I kind of felt bad that he got a ticket and I didn't. Story 20. I turned up in the school washroom with my friends with the lights off and music blasting out. People were hanging off the stalls and making as much noise as possible. Teacher comes in and writes our names down. She gets to me and asks, have I already written your name? And I say yes and walk away. Friends got detention. Apparently someone cracked the mirror in the washroom and no one fessed up, so they all went down together. Story 21. Skipped class with some friends. They all got detention except me. I went to my doc, said that I skipped class and gave him a wink. Got the papers to stay at home for the rest of the week. Does your doctor also prescribe medication for sometimes getting nervous on airplanes? Story 22. Not me, but a friend. This happened 20 plus years ago. My friends were hanging out and decided to go for a pizza. She headed to the pizza place, while the others headed to the other location of the same pizza joint. This was before the days of common cell phones. The location that her friends went to, a guy decided to shoot up the place. I'm not sure how many were hit. She was obviously fine because she was at the other location. Story 23. I was on holiday in Bali. A policeman flagged us down and we were waiting at traffic lights on our rented mopeds. I just decided to bezz it through the now green traffic lights. They got pulled and fined a fair amount for driving without a license. I feel a bit awful afterwards, but they said they would have done the same if they had the guts to. For a second there, I thought you were the only one who got away from the tsunami. Story 24. During school, my friends and I sat at the same table. They and I had a food fight. However, I sat at the perfect angle to where the lunch people couldn't see me throwing food. I didn't get caught, and the rest of my friends had to clean the tables for a week and got detention. Story 25. High school party. The girl decides to spread her legs and smash 12 guys in a room. I passed out before it happened. They all got chlamydia.
Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.